And here you go, brother. That's for you. And I've got, this is going to encourage you. I'm doing this because the word is going to come out. We're going to give glory to Jesus. That's what Sundays are all about. You know, we point to Jesus. The way, the truth, and our life. And Ryan has been through some things, man. And are you real? Because you should be dead, and you're not dead.
No.
And now I bet, I'm just willing to bet that maybe a third or more of this congregation have no idea who you are. And I've known you for, I'm thinking 6 years, as I recall, because I think we met at the Revolution. I think that's where we met with Shad. The first time may have been at Connie's Bible study in her home, too. I don't know. Maybe not. It was at Shad's. Okay.
I think it was at Shad's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us who you are, and tell us about your family a little bit. Just tell us who you are.
Sure. So Ryan Lelf, be 37 in 8 days. Mm-hmm. So I live here in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. My wife, Caroline, would be here, but one of our little ones is ill this morning. So we've been married 17 years, high school sweethearts. We have 3 children. Addison, our oldest, is 11. Atlanta, our middle, is 7. Our daughter, and then our youngest son, Arthur's 5. And from the Tulsa area, lived here pretty much my whole life, moved around a little bit as an adult. And I was raised in a Christian home. My parents are still together. And then about 2010, just kind of got introduced to more of an understanding of grace and unconditional love. And
you know what? I want to talk about that in a minute because I want to talk, because I remember I just remember you coming in, you saying hi to Shad. That's my picture of you when we first met at Agora Coffee Shop. That's where the Revolution Church was going.
Yes.
That's Shad Worley. How many of you remember Shad Worley? Amen.
Yeah.
He's ministered to a bunch of us. We just bless him, huh? And but I remember you coming in, and like you and Shad had known each other or from something anyway.
Yeah, back from like school, and his brother and I were good buddies from when I went to Victory for a while. So
there was electricity in the air. Okay, I mean, because we were all coming into something, and I just want you to think back to whatever that was 6 years ago or something.
Yeah.
What's the one or maybe 2 things, whatever, that about your understanding of the gospel that changed you?
Yeah, I mean, I just think in a nutshell, I mean, I was coming out of like the roughest 2 years of my adult life. I just felt so much condemnation in my own heart from just, unfortunately, what I'd been taught throughout the years, or maybe just a misunderstanding on my part too. I'm not one to necessarily blame, just saying between the communication of what I was receiving and then my understanding, in a nutshell, my adult story is I committed infidelity on Caroline in our 4th year of marriage, so we made it through that, but I really didn't make it through internally. And then, we've been through bankruptcy, we had a miscarriage, we've lost everything in a business, and all of that was just piling up. And so this overwhelming feeling of I'm not good enough. And then unfortunately, certain people within the Christian community, said things like, God will never bless you again because you filed bankruptcy, and you'll always be under a curse because of your sins. And a lot of this seems a little bit extreme, but the more and more I interact with people, the more I find on at least a subconscious level that actually a lot of people actually believe that. And it doesn't have to be a sin like infidelity, and it doesn't have to be as dramatic as bankruptcy. It could be something what we would consider much smaller. And they may not feel like someone's like in their face saying it, but on a deep level, the way they live their life kind of proves that actually they do actually believe that.
We have beliefs we don't ever tell people about.
Absolutely.
What we really believe.
Well, we do actually by our actions.
Well, we do.
But we don't say them with our...
It comes out by the way we live.
Correct. Sometimes we can't put language to it.
But so you were carrying significant guilt with you.
Oh, definitely.
Man, and so what happened that you were able to...
Yeah, I just
get out from under that?
Originally, actually, Chad Worley actually gave me the book, or told me about the book Destined to Reign by Joseph Prince. So I read that, and And that was just the beginning, you know, of just a journey. We're all on a journey. We're all learning. We're all discovering. We're all trying to make sense of spirituality, God, Jesus, you know, life, our mistakes, why we do what we do. And so that immediately, though, began to lift a lot of this burden, this condemnation. And I began to be able to believe that, no, I wasn't under a curse. No, he wasn't holding my sins against me. You know, no, that was not true. And so within a matter of weeks, because at that time I was actually not working, hadn't really been working for like 2 years. We were living with my brother at the time. I had 2 young kids. And within a matter of weeks, enough burden came off me. I had a job. I was back making a living. Like, I was immediately able to start taking action because I became free of so many of the things that were weighing me down that it felt like even hard to get out of bed. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. It's wrong belief. If you have that condemnation that's on you, you feel like I'm never going to be blessed, or all those other people can be blessed, but somehow there's something in my mind that says to me, I can't be blessed. You really do live out of that, and you make decisions based on that.
No question about it.
And you stay at a low place in your life.
Absolutely. And different people have different language for it, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's, you know, they're not believing the truth about who they are. They're believing some type of a lie, and I was believing some type of a lie that was coming through people or coming through a community or coming through religion. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to describe it. But at the end of the day, I didn't believe the truth about Ryan David Lelf.
Yeah.
And therefore, I was living from this misunderstanding, this lie, this...
And that is exactly what Jesus came to deliver us from.
Absolutely.
That he came to take that sin away, that condemnation away, and then somehow in the church it just gets communicated. Either, you know, like, we don't want to lay blame anywhere. It's just that it somehow gets communicated inside of us that God is still angry with us, or that this last time I blew it and there's no hope for me, or I'm not eternally forgiven, but it's that whole thing of that, you know, I said this verse so many times, but Hebrews is like, it's Jesus, by his one sacrifice, took the sins of all time upon himself. And he made sacrifice for that and then sat down. He's not in the forgiving business anymore. He has done it. You're forgiven. He took the sins for all time. The sins for all time means past sins, present, it's future sins. It's all been taken by him. You were going to say something.
Yeah, so I think the important thing for all of us here is, like, so that if that's the truth, and if at any one point in any of our lives we're able to believe that, then why can't we just believe it all the time? So stop getting your belief from what any other human being ever says or don't says, because a human being can have a moment where they're not believing it, therefore then they communicate something in an incorrect way. If you have to show up to a building, or you have to always be at a certain place, or you have to follow some certain routine, if you're relying on anything other than just continual believing the truth all the time, then life is this roller coaster.
Yeah.
And then we see all these inconsistencies, and it's frustrating. Yeah. I don't know if it is for you, but it is for me. And so the more I've grown and the more I've, you know, whatever you want to call it, as a human being, and the more I just say, I know what Jesus says about me, I know what the truth is, and if Pastor Greg's off this week, or my friend is having a bad moment or whatever, then I'm sorry, but it's not anything
right.
against him or anything against my friend. It's just I'm not wearing that. I'm not receiving that. That's not coming into me. I already know the truth, and that is going to remain regardless of my circumstances, what's being shared, what's being said. Because, by the way, we are human beings, and we do have moments where we forget who we are. But that doesn't mean that just because the person we're listening to has forgotten that we need to join them.
Yeah. Get settled in that. Get settled in the work of Jesus and what he did.
Absolutely.
Get settled in the belief that he is the Savior. He knows how to save.
Correct.
Okay. That's good. That's really good, man. When I came into that, And I have to say, it's a progressive work for me. It just goes deeper and deeper in me. But it allowed me to experience for the first time in my life the love of the Father for me. Because I'd always just written myself off by all the things I wouldn't maybe have said out loud, but believed in my heart that I was not worthy of his love. So it allowed me to go into the love of God. Okay, so that was like 6 years ago. You're starting to get a hold of that, and it changed your life. And the one thing I know about you is you're not somebody that believes halfway about anything. It's like if you don't, it's like all of life is just a bungee jump. It's like you never leave one foot on the platform. We're just going to jump all the way in.
And the net will appear.
And okay, well, about a year and a half, something happened to you. So in your body. So tell us what happened.
Yeah. So well, I guess in like the summer of 2015, I'd noticed I had a few like swollen lymph nodes around my neck and stuff. Didn't really think much of it, didn't have any other symptoms. I think in like late July or August maybe, I went and saw my primary care physician. They ran some blood work. He still didn't think it was anything, serious. So I was scheduled to go see an ear, nose, throat specialist in September of 2015, but at the time I was switching careers from being a realtor to a loan officer. And the appointment happened to fall during a 2-week training where I needed to be down in Oklahoma City right after Labor Day. So I actually rescheduled the appointment, and then a couple of days after Labor Day 2015, I woke up at 5 a.m. in my hotel room because I was down in Oklahoma City for this training, and I just had this horrible, horrible headache. And I really have never been one to have headaches. I mean, basically zero medical history at this point, 35 years old. And so I just thought it was like the stress of studying for my mortgage exam, looking at a computer too long. So I went and bought like reading glasses, at a drugstore, and took some some type of pills for migraines or something, but they just persisted, like for another day or two. So then I thought, well, maybe I need to see a chiropractor. So I found a chiropractor down there in Oklahoma City. Caroline actually visited me that weekend. I think I actually even played in a tennis tournament, and I won it too. But anyway, yeah, that guy officially got beat by, anyway, you'll understand in a minute. But but they just kept persisting, and then the next week she went back home. I was still doing training, and they started happening throughout the day, and I mean, I was taking plenty of medication, nothing was knocking him down. The reading glasses weren't working. I somehow passed my mortgage exam, and finally, I interacted because I'd put it out on Facebook, and one of my friends is an eye doctor down there in Oklahoma City, and I remember we were talking on Wednesday, and he said, look, man, he said, just come by my office first thing in the morning before you go into work, and let me just examine your eyes, let's just see. So I come in there, and he looks at my eyes and everything for like a second or two, and then I tell him about these swollen lymph nodes, and I kind of pull my collar back, and I was showing him because I had a swollen lymph node right here on my left clavicle, and he kind of did this, like, ooh, wow. And I said, what, Dr. Bilardo? And he said, man, I don't want to scare you, Ryan. He said, but that's called a Virchow. And he said, my understanding is that that's a sign that you have cancer. And he said, you need to get MRIs like today, and you need to get all this checked out. And he said, I can get that scheduled for you. And I said, no, I'm going to go pack up my stuff, talk to my boss. I want to drive back to Tulsa. I want to be with Caroline. So that's what I did. I told my boss, hey, I need to, something's not right. Something's going on. He said, no problem. I went and packed all my stuff up that morning, drove home, called Caroline. She scheduled some MRIs for the following evening. That was like Friday, I think September the 18th, if I remember correctly. So I had an MRI done on my brain, my neck, chest area, my whole abdomen. And then on Saturday, September the 19th, I got a text about noon, and it was from my primary care physician. He said, hey, are you going to be around in a couple hours? I need to give you a call. So he did, and he called, and he just said, hey, man, he said, I'm really sorry to tell you this. He goes, but, the MRI show you're just lit up like a Christmas tree. And that really wasn't a good thing in this case. And he said, I'm about 99% for sure that you have lymphoma. And he said, you're going to need to go get a biopsy done, early next week. But it's probably pretty serious. And I said, okay. And I got off the phone, and I just looked over at Caroline, and I said, all right, what do we do? And I mean, that's really all it was. Like, I know that sounds kind of Morse, and let me say this too, like, look, please don't compare me or my story with anyone else. Cancer's a really, really hard thing, and there's probably people in here, well, I know there's people in here that maybe you lost someone to cancer, and I'm deeply, deeply sorry, okay? I'm just a human being. I'm just sharing my story, and I'm just telling you how I worked through it and what I did, but it is in no way discrediting anyone else's journey, their story, their outcome. My personal belief is that who we are in Christ is the exact same regardless of a physical outcome or result. But still, what I would ask is that you would open up your mind and your heart. Maybe there's something that, some revelation that could come that is channeled through me, answering these questions.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that because my heart is that I don't have all the answers. I don't have it all figured out. I feel extremely fortunate and blessed that I'm sitting here literally today with you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that real quick.
No, I'm glad you did. Okay, so it was lymphoma. Okay. And and how bad was it?
Yeah, so then we got the biopsy, and then we got the official diagnosis about 2 weeks later, and it's what they call stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had a tumor load from my groin to my neck. I had a basketball-sized cluster in my stomach. It was in my spleen, and it had metastasized into my bone marrow. And so when we met with the oncologist, just to kind of paint you a picture of kind of what I was told, so best case scenario was, they immediately wanted me to start on chemotherapy and a whole regimen of things. And they said, if you respond well to that, we can slow it down or put it in what they call remission in about 6 months. And then it'll come back later. You'll have to come back for more chemo. And if we can extend your life by 10 years, we'd be thrilled. Like, that'd be like a home run. And I said, okay, well, what else you got? And he's like, well, we're actually pretty concerned that the chemotherapy could actually kill you in the first 6 months, long before the cancer would ever get to you. And I said, okay, well, what else you got? And he goes, well, we don't have anything else because there's no cure for this. And I said, okay. So, I tried to be as respectful and as kind as possible, and we understood very quickly that, that's all they have to offer. But you just have to understand that my daughter was 5 at the time, and those options are unacceptable because they don't walk my daughter down the aisle. So yeah. I'm not doing that. Like, that just isn't going to work. So the world's a really big place. There's 7.7 billion people on the planet. My God, he's surely got something else for me besides this. Oh, so man. I just decided from day one.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I want to get to it.
Sure.
Because I have a couple of things I want to cover before we get there.
Okay, no problem.
I was thinking...
You're taking the lead, brother.
That's right. That's right. This is my platform, right?
I'm glad you created enough space for us both.
Yes, I did. I want to back up a little bit because I want to cover some things that are important to hear, and one of the things is fear. Because it doesn't matter what it doesn't have to be cancer. But there are other things that come in our lives, and cancer is like one of the big ones where we go, I would think that kind of diagnosis is gonna translate into fear, and I bet it does. I'm sure it does for many, many people.
It does.
So tell us about fear. Tell us about the fear.
Yeah. Well, I just think in the last 6 years, especially, I mean, I know I don't even really know how to answer. Like, I wasn't afraid. I'm not afraid to die. Like, I'm not afraid to die right now. I'm never afraid to die, and I wasn't when I got diagnosed. So it was what it was. I'm led. There's wisdom in me. How are we going to navigate through it? Like, it was that simple. I didn't have no big crying spell. I didn't have nothing. And I'm just telling you that it's not a bragging thing. This is not arrogance. This is deep, deep belief. I'm persuaded, I'm convinced, and I choose to believe this, period. I don't want to lose a child. I don't want my wife to get killed in a car wreck. I don't want to lose all my money tomorrow. I don't want someone to rape my daughter. I don't want any of that stuff to happen, right? But I'm also not in total control of the planet, and there's obviously some type of evil going on, okay? And those things may come about, but here's what I know. He's never going to leave me. He's never going to forsake me, all right? I'm in total peace. I'm loved, I'm valuable, I'm worthy, I'm significant, I'm magnificent, I'm righteous. Nothing I could ever do can ever take that away. Nothing I can ever do can ever add to that. It's just what it is, period. And I'm going to walk in it and believe in it 24/7. And if I get into environments where anyone's trying to convince me otherwise, then I'm just going to distance myself. And I'm not going to continue to listen to that.
You know, the verse that came to me is in dealing with fear for ourselves. And it's first of all, it's amazing to hear somebody say that, because that's not the way the world responds to the big C word, you know. But it's the way that settled believers can respond to anything that comes to them. And I read this from Hebrews 2. You'll know this. This is 14 and 15. It says, "Inasmuch then as the children have partaken of flesh and blood," that's us. We're in flesh and blood, so we've partaken of. It's kind of who we are. It says, "He himself," that's Jesus, "likewise shared in the same." He shared in flesh and blood for a purpose. He says that through death, his death, he would destroy him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. Fear of death is bondage to you. I mean, you if you're operating out of fear, you're making decisions that are based on fear and not based on the leading of the Holy Spirit. That His love casts that fear out. And this is, I just love that about you, Ryan, because it's just a living example of someone who just partakes of who he is in Christ, partakes of your identity in Him, receives the love, and the fear is gone. We know in the end, we know what the future holds for us. We know that what cancer had in store was something different for your immediate future, but we've got a God that's bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, if at any point, if we're believing that somehow there's some way that we're going to mess it up with, our life, and that somehow then God writes us off, or then we're done, then, think about how we're going to live then according to that belief. If I live every day out of fear that Caroline, my wife, is going to leave me, then I'm going to live like an idiot husband. It's the truth, right? If I live every day out of fear that my kids are going to grow up and not live well, then I'm going to let that anxiety, that stress overwhelm me. It's going to cloud my judgment. It's going to cause me to try to be a control freak. It's going to cause me to inhibit their own journey, their own development. See, God is not interested in inhibiting or getting in the way of our own journey and our own human development. He wants us to believe the truth so that while we're on the journey, when we have our moments of forgetting who we are, or we make a foolish decision, or we do something that doesn't serve us well, then when we believe the truth, that's how we get right back on track. It's actually when we forget the truth that we keep wallowing in the same nonsense. And all I really did was just apply this to cancer. If I spend all the days after my diagnosis worrying about, what if I die? What if I die? What if I die? Well, all that was going to do is create fear and anxiety and cloud my judgment and make me feel like I didn't have any power to do anything about it. It would just make me feel helpless. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of people of cancer respond to their diagnosis, is they feel helpless because of that overwhelming fear. Well, if you feel helpless in your marriage, right, then you probably aren't contributing to the marriage. You're not showing love. You're not helping around the house. You're not engaging in good conversation. You're not revealing who you are. Why? Because of a poor belief system. And so then all of a sudden it ends in divorce, and people are like, blaming the devil. The devil didn't do anything. This is my opinion, my belief, but I'm just saying, right? If he did anything, he got you convinced to believe the wrong things. Maybe we can give him credit for that.
But
he didn't do the divorce. Do you understand what I'm saying? right? It was us not renewing our minds. The Bible's constantly renew the mind, renew the mind, renew the mind, renew the mind.
Right.
There's not hardly a day that doesn't go by that I'm not intentionally renewing my mind.
Amen.
Almost
That's
every
right.
single day
I
of my
love
life.
that. I love it. You know, I because I've heard interview that you did once. You said at this interview that there was a fear. It wasn't fear for your own life.
Yes.
It was fear for your family. How did God resolve that in your life?
Yeah, so I did not have a fear of dying personally, but as the months kind of went on through this adventure with cancer, and for those of you that follow the journey, I deteriorated big time physically. I lost 45 pounds. I had this massive fluid problem. I was in pretty serious shape, like in January 2016. I mean, some doctors thought it was any day, I was going to pass. And so this definite fear was coming over Caroline, my wife, which I'm sure you can understand and imagine, and just the thought of losing me and with us having 3 young children. And so then I started really having these thoughts and these fears and these concerns. I know I'm at peace. I know I'm okay, and I'm cool if I pass. But what about Caroline and Addison and Atlanta and Arthur? Are they going to really be okay if I'm not here? Because I knew if I'm here, I'm an engaged dad. That doesn't mean I'm a perfect dad. That doesn't mean I do everything right. It just means I care, and I'm giving it everything I got, and I'm doing the best I know how to do. So at least they've got a dad, and they got someone that's there to love them and support them and raise them and teach them. And the same with Caroline in our marriage. I'm not a perfect husband. I don't do everything right, but I'm an engaged husband, and I want to be married to her, and I want to do life with her, and I'm willing to keep growing, and I'm willing to say I screwed up or fall on my sword or apologize or whatever. But if I'm not here, all of a sudden, all these different scenarios and thoughts started hitting me well, what if, I pass, and then she has a time of mourning, but then she thinks she's ready to engage again, and then she meets a guy, and she's still kind of vulnerable, and then she gets married, and then he turns out to be a real jerk, and then he hurts her or abuses her or does something to my kids. And can you guys just imagine? This is just flooding my mind, And I don't know if it was a few weeks or a few months, but I just remember getting to a point. I just remember thinking, man, no, I do not. I'm not tolerating this. This is ridiculous. I don't subscribe to fear. I'm not giving into this. And it was one of the many times I was in the hospital. I think it was an ER visit. And actually, it was the day you actually came and visited me, Pastor Greg. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
But you came, and then actually another lady, Sherry Hensley, actually came by that day. And it just felt like it was like the elephant in the room. And I just remember calling Caroline over to the bed, and I just said, you know what? We got to talk about this deal. We got to talk about the reality of it is I could die. I never thought I was going to die. I was convinced I was going to live the whole time, but I also didn't have my head in the sand, and I knew the reality was that it was a possibility. And so we sobbed for 20 minutes, and then we just did what 2 grown-up, mature adults do. We made sure all the things were in place if that were to happen. And we just talked about all the tough stuff. And I don't know if I got out of the hospital that day or the next day, but within definitely a couple of days, we were back at home, and I was sitting in my recliner in the master bedroom. And it was one evening, and Caroline had put the kids to bed. And I'll never forget it the rest of my life. Because it's the most powerful thing I've ever learned in my whole life. And the reason why I know it's truth, and the reason why I know it can be applied to anyone and everyone is because it works every single time. And she came over next to me, and she said, put your phone down, and she reached out and held my hand, and she looked me dead in the eye and down my throat and into my heart, and she said, I will be okay if you die. The kids will be okay if you die. And I cannot tell you guys the pressure and the peace. Well, the pressure came off and the peace came on because that was too much of a burden to carry. You can't carry that burden. You can't. It's impossible. And I definitely couldn't heal carrying that burden. And you know what? The Spirit is inviting every single one of us at all given moments throughout our entire journey on the planet. He's inviting you to go there. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of not having enough money? Are you afraid that you'll never have restoration with your child that you have a broken relationship with? Are you afraid that no one will accept you or love you again because you've been divorced? Are you afraid that you'll never be where you want to be in your physical body? I mean, it doesn't matter. It could be the most simplest of fears and concerns all the way to death and anything and everything in between. And the Spirit is simply saying, well, what if that does happen? I mean, what if you do never get skinny? And what if you do never have enough money? And what if you do never get remarried? Are you going to spend all your days sitting around wallowing in that, I'm not okay because this didn't happen? Since when do we get our okayness from an outward circumstance in the first place?
That's good, right?
Why don't you just be okay because you're already okay? And then from there, maybe you'll run into another person who already discovered they were okay, and then you two could hook up.
That's good, brother. I was thinking about from Acts, and Paul's talking to the jailer, and there was tumult in the jail, and the prisoners could escape, and they didn't escape. They were singing hymns. All the prisoners, Paul led them all in this, and the jailer's like dumbfounded by this, and it convinced him, and he said, "What do I need to do to be saved?" And Paul said, "Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you shall be saved, you and your household." It's like, and I always took that to be, I know we have to believe, but I know that Jesus is able to find a way to allow my kids to be okay, or allow my family to be okay, because I'm a believer. I just received that as a promise for my whole family. My whole family, they're going to be okay. And you were able to, at some level, believe your wife when she told you that. We're going to be okay.
Absolutely. And the truth is then we never had to deal with that the rest of the time. And so now all of our energy, all of our life, all of our focus, all of our being was just on how do we continue healing? How do we continue on this journey? How do we continue to help Ryan get better? How do we still find joy in the midst of really tough circumstances? Because, if you're in the middle of really tough circumstances, joy is the engine to life, okay? And so circumstances, there's an ebb and a flow. There's a yin and a yang, like they come and go. Sometimes we are in like cush circumstances. Other times we're in less than desirable circumstances. I don't know about you. I don't want my joy to come and go. I want my joy to be constant. Because if I happen to leave the earth in my physical body during a difficult circumstance, I don't want to leave under not experiencing joy, right? But here's the thing, but don't beat yourself up if you have momentary moments of not having joy. On this adventure with cancer, I remember one night Caroline kind of crying in bed, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, I just don't feel any joy right now." And I thought, oh boy, man, don't mess this one up, husband, all right? This is tough stuff right here, And so I just kind of laid there for a second and just waited until I felt like the Holy Spirit gave me the right words. And I said, well, sounds pretty human to me, Caroline, under the circumstances that, with all I've got going on, that you might not be feeling joy right now. I said, but here's the truth. Whether you feel joy right now or not is not what determines whether you're a joyful person. You are a joyful person. It's just the overwhelming circumstances of life have caused you to not be able to feel it at the moment. So reset your mind back to who you are, and I'm thinking that at some point, whether it be tomorrow or in a week or a month, because it doesn't matter, by the way, this is not a competition, you will feel who you already are again. and
That's
you don't
good.
have to leave the identity that is still there, even though in this exact moment, the feeling of everything you're faced with just seems stronger than the truth of who you are.
That's beautiful, Ryan. I agree with you 100%. I have a question. I have a good question for you, but I have to ask a question before I get to my question. Okay. So, like, you're like this, some kind of Facebook guru or something. You're like you're on all the time. You record vlogs. You write down tons of stuff. People from all over the world read what you write and what you through this experience. It's come out of this experience of healing, and you're like some of the things you say make me crazy. Okay, because it's the way you say it. I think it's the language, and I've talked to you about this. That's why I'm asking, because I look at this and I just shake my head and I go, anyway, I wanted you to just speak to that first. Like you talk about, I'll speak for you. Yeah. You talk about, like you talk about the higher being. You talk about other words, and I go, no, it's Father. Or you talk about God in us. Well, that's Jesus. It's Christ in me, the hope of glory. That's the revelation of Christianity. And so much so that I asked you about it. I said, "What? Tell me what you believe." So I just thought, I wanted to ask you that. What's the deal?
Yeah. Well,
what's the deal, Ryan?
Well, the deal is that because of us being public with my journey, all of a sudden my world got expanded big time. There's some videos out there that have been seen over 1 million times, and I'm on the video. So there are people from all over the whole world, from multiple countries, that message me almost daily. I interact with hundreds, if not thousands, of people constantly. I literally have to, I just woke up this morning and I just feel a little heavy right now, and I just feel like it's been too much. So I just started a Facebook sabbatical, because that's the only way I can actually unplug. And I don't know how long I'm going to go. I'm going to go until I feel better. I can't carry the weight of the amount of people that are willing to reach out and interact. Yeah. And so just over the last several months, the language that I used changed for the simple purpose of I wanted every single person on the planet to understand that they don't have to believe like me for me to embrace them. Because cancer touches every religion, every race, every country, every sex, every age around the globe. And I truly believe that God didn't give me cancer, okay? Planet Earth hit me with cancer. I also believe some of my own ignorance and lack of understanding of things that I could change in my lifestyle contributed to me having cancer. But I feel like then this platform is opened up, and this is my life work. And that's going to be a main part of it, is health and cancer. But it's more than just trying to give them a practical example of how to go through it. It's more of giving them hope and showing them love. And just sometimes all people need is for someone to say it's going to be okay, and to be there. Like, a lot of my conversations are not telling them exactly what to eat and what to do and which clinic to go to. In fact, in most cases, I tell people, I'll share my experience, but I want you to learn to make your own decision. I want to empower you to find your own path. Your path doesn't need to look like mine. And so I don't know that I consciously realize this, but I interact with people who believe in Buddhism, who are Islamic, atheist, and I love all of them, and they love me. Yeah. And I have no interest in trying to convert them, convince them, or change their mind. I am simply seeing them as a human being. And if I can help them then it is important that I don't stay in my little bubble of my little language that I believe in on a personal level that might cause them to push me away before they ever have a chance to glean some value. Because at the end of the day, there's only one source, right? And right now, they may think that they're getting there through a different path. And who am I to beat them up about that? I recently had a lady send me a private message, and she just said, I don't personally believe in Jesus like you do, but I love reading your journey, and you have helped me so much.
Yeah.
I then had another person recently send me a message and say, I would love for you to understand, I'm a Muslim, and I married a Christian, and we do actually believe in Jesus, and we're nothing like what they say we are on TV. And it was just beautiful. And she wasn't trying to, she respects that I see it a little different, and I respect that she sees it a little bit of different, and we are literally just interacting in this beautiful union as human beings.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry I drive you crazy.
No, yeah, you do. You do drive me crazy. But I get it. I get it.
This is
because your congregation is the whole world.
It's global.
You're looking at having impact on...
2/3 of the world do not claim to be Christian.
Yeah, right.
Are we going to be stuck in our own language to then not be able to communicate and talk to them?
Yeah, or love them, or minister to them in some way.
Look, if you need to use language in your own meditation and private time, that is how you translate it, fantastic. But us having to always blast and be right and say it in our own way on a global thing like Facebook, honestly, I think it's a little bit of lack of maturity on some of our parts. And it was for me personally, because we're missing how big and global the world really is. And if you really were to read the threads, most of the time I don't even really interact, because it's not about, I'm trying to create space, open dialogue, judgment-free zones, and a safe environment, because it is really hard for the physical body to heal if I'm under judgment, if I'm under condemnation, if I'm under being scared of what people are going to think about me, if I can't be free to express all my emotions and what I'm going through and how hard this is. I want to create those environments regardless of where they're coming. Hey, when someone's got a cancer diagnosis, the last time anybody needs to try to do at that exact moment is try to beat them up about why their spiritual beliefs are wrong.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That is only going to engrave, in my understanding, the cancer deeper into them, because it's like, I'm not good enough. I'm wrong. I don't have it right. I must deserve this.
That's good, Ryan. I agree with you. I agree with you.
And one other quick thing, because a lot of people struggle with science. Well, who created science? There is scientific evidence that our attitude, our belief system, and the way we feel about ourselves has a direct effect on the physical well-being of our cells in our physical body.
I believe it.
And God is behind that. Not everybody maybe uses language that makes us feel like they're giving him credit, but he doesn't need them to give credit to know he's already the one behind it. Does that make sense?
It does.
And he doesn't need all of us going around going, you need to give God more credit. You need to give God more credit. He's like, relax, just love them. They're okay. That's where they're at on the journey. I already know I got the credit. Chill out, my darling.
We're going to wrap this up. But see, that was my prelude to what I wanted to get to. Only because...
I'm glad we finally got there. It's like, whoo, circling around the airport there, Pastor.
I feel that we haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay.
We're about to. I feel like...
Still circling.
We speak very clearly here. This stuff doesn't come from God. Cancer doesn't come from God. I mean, you just said it here. This is like, don't mistake the horror of the world for God. Okay.
Correct.
So But I feel like you have an audience of so many people, and I'm just curious because I don't hear our people saying this came from God. I don't think last maybe 5 years I've heard anybody say, why did God do this to me? We know that it's not God bringing evil to us. Is that still an issue out there? Do you hear from people who are just, they're just...
Well, I think more of what I hear is because of me being public and just because of how I shared my journey, and then obviously now with the outcome and obviously being cancer-free, and them seeing me doing the kind of work I'm doing now and speaking and stuff like that, a lot of people still say, they don't say like in the exact words like God gave you cancer, but they still insinuate like, well, God needed you to have cancer in order to fulfill your purpose. No. Listen, he could have fulfilled his purpose in me without me getting cancer, okay? So our response by believing in who we are to our cancer, whatever your cancer is, whatever your tough circumstance is, right, is what they're really missing, okay? Like God didn't formulate and cause cancer to come upon Ryan, and then he likes me and loves me more than the next guy, and so because a lot of people think like that I'm special, right, and that I got some anointing and I've got some calling, and so therefore like I got to live, but the other 8 million people, they don't get to live this year, they got to die. Yeah. And I just can't wrap my mind around that. I can't believe in that. And that's because, again, I believe we have been given the Spirit of God, and we are co-creating the earth with Him. And in that ability to co-create, He's not up there. We're not puppets. You know what I mean? He's not pulling strings, right? He does not force us. He does not force up on us. No. And so the more we walk in the truth, the more we walk in our identity and belief, the more we live like that. Like, how many of you would agree that the more you believe about who you are, that it reflects in how you treat your friends? It reflects in how you treat your spouse, okay? Well, this one's going to sting because some of you haven't realized this one yet. It reflects in how you eat, too. You want to know why food does matter? Just like being nice to your spouse matters. You don't have to eat well if you don't want to. And you don't have to be nice to your spouse either if you don't want to. But just like there are benefits to being kind and loving, there are benefits to eating better food. And I just took the same identity that I feel like I have that helps me be a whole and healthy husband to being a whole and healthy physical being. And a lot of people in Christianity especially, they're only choosing to believe the truth about their identity in the areas they want to, or the areas that come easy. And they go, oh no, this doesn't matter. They may not say it with their words, they just say it with their actions. And it's just a limiting belief. Get your belief lined up about who you are in the area you're struggling in, and you will begin to see an effortless change because the results are real. Eating real food does change your life over eating crap food. And to be in denial of that is to be in denial of God on some level. I'm sorry. And if that rubs you the wrong way, then you'll just have to be offended. I don't mean to be that way, but it's the truth. It is. And just like being unloving to your spouse might eventually lead to divorce if you keep being a jerk. But if you line up and believe in who you are and you start being loving and kind, then your marriage will flourish. And people go, oh, it's God. Oh, it's God, Ryan, that you're here. Yes, it's God because He created real food and I believe the truth about it and I changed what I ate along with a bunch of other things. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So He is the ultimate source, right? He just doesn't force it into us or upon us. And the more we believe the truth in every single areas of our life, the more we begin to behave and see a flourishing in that area.
Ryan, thank you for your time today. I know you've whet a lot of appetites, if I could say, about what your ministry is, and I know that you're available to, and there's lots of stuff on your blogs and so forth. And if people want to reach out to you for more information, I know you'd be happy to give it to them. And thank you for being here. I want to just say, we've helped Ryan in other ways. We've helped him with some financial things too. This is what you do now. You go around and you speak hope into people's lives. I wanted to just have an opportunity, if people wanted to sow into this. This is a ministry to help people come to a place of health. And if you would like to do that, we're going to receive an offering for him, and I ask Vinny, our ushers, to help with that. If it's in your heart to give toward Ryan. And I think what you can do is just if you have a check, you can write it out to Healing Grace Church. If you want to use the envelopes, you can do that. And then we'll receive this, and we'll just cut you one check, Ryan, if that's all right. Give us one last word in 1 minute to tell us, I don't know, what's in your heart for lifting people up.
Yeah, I just want to see us all just really, really, really actually live loved, live free, live as the most valuable being ever created on the universe, live as one who truly knows they are significant and they are magnificent, and that we would really truly see everyone first and foremost as a human being, and that we could really let go of the labels, let go of the stigmatism, let go of anything that gets in the way of just seeing them as, I really believe that we all have far more in common than we do differences, regardless of what we believe spiritually, our backgrounds, where we come from. Why don't we start there? Why don't we open up our minds and our hearts and listen to people who maybe believe differently than us, and really ask the Spirit to guide us and to withhold our judgment and withhold our stigmatism and withhold our labels, and to see them first and foremost as a brother, as a sister, a brother from another mother, a sister from another mister, right? And to just truly relax and to just see where conversations can go. One of the beauties of having digital conversations, I just heard this last night, is that there's actually a buffer, in the sense of if someone seems to be kind of hostile and seems to be kind of riling it up, just defer the conversation elsewhere. Take a break. Come back when you're at a place of love. Come back to that conversation when you're at a place of peace. And engage with them. Don't fight right back. And may we be the ones to have the courage to absorb the hurt, absorb the pain, absorb the criticism, because we know who we are and whose we are. Because otherwise, when is the cycle of hurt, pain, anger, hurt, pain, anger, hurt, pain, anger ever going to stop unless someone has the courage to say, let me step away, let me absorb, let me go get my being re-established in who I am, and let me come back as that person and re-engage in a loving and respectful way, and hope that somehow that influences the other person to do the same.
Thank you, Ryan. I love you, man. It's a good word.